Hi there, I'm board certified professional organizer Kathy Burns. I'm really glad you're here. This podcast is designed for busy entrepreneurs just like you who want to take better control of your business and move forward with less stress and more success. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. The Organized Energized podcast is produced for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at thepodcast.organizedandenergize.com. Come back often and feel free to add this podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow me on Twitter at Organized Energy and Facebook. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get into the show. Hi, everyone. Today I'm speaking with Iggy Perillo. She is the founder of WSL Leadership. Iggy amplifies emotional intelligence so leaders can create thriving teams. She also elevates course creators into powerful educators. So if you're looking to create an online course, Iggy's the girl to tell you what to do, how to do it, how to create your statement at the beginning of the course so that your students understand where they're going to go and create a roadmap for their success. So let's jump into it and talk to Iggy about this in further detail. Hi guys, I'm back and I'm with Iggy Perillo, and I am here to talk with Iggy about course creation mastery, how to become the most masterful course creator and get the people to actually take your information and run with it and use it. Iggy is an expert in this field, and I want to welcome Iggy to the show. Welcome, Iggy. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Kathy. I'm happy to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk about this, being a course creator myself. But let's get into a little bit of backstory on why you're doing what you're doing, Iggy. So what's up? Where did you come from? Where have you been? All that good. Let's give us some backstory here.
Sure. I basically come from the world that was summer camp at one time as a young person, summer camp counselor, and then took this leap to being an Outward Bound instructor. So playing outside for fun to changing lives through challenge and adventure, right? And then along the way, I got a teaching license, and along the way, I got a master's degree in experiential education. So not just like, we're playing outside and hey, you might learn something, but we're going to sculpt experiences so that you can learn and change and grow and actually transform in really human, personal, deep levels. So I was doing that work I'm actually still doing that work off and on. And so through that work, got it more and more into leadership development, because leaders operate in this very dynamic, very changing, very experiential space. And then from there, moving into seeing the world through the pandemic, mainly a lot of folks, a lot of creators like us, a lot of people who have expertise and a lot of wisdom to offer the world. We're like, oh, I need to offer a course. I need to do it online. I need to offer a course. I need to do these things. And looking at and seeing them and going to webinars, learning. I love learning. So I'm always attending, going to different things and seeing people deliver things. I'm like, oh, you have so much skill. You have so much knowledge. You're a great presenter. You're a great speaker, but you're just not quite there as an educator. Like, oh, you sort of missed it here a little bit. Like, oh, you kind of should have set us up a little better over here. Like, oh, you could have crafted that a little bit better. Because people don't have those skills. They have knowledge, they have wisdom, they have expertise in their area. Being an educator, isn't necessarily everyone's area of expertise, and you can learn those skills. You can have those too, and then whatever you deliver, whatever you have to say, the wisdom you have to offer gets into the minds of the people, which you articulated beautifully in the intro, and then people can use it and absorb it and take your wisdom and integrate it and transform their lives with it. And so I help people bridge that little gap from their wisdom to being expert educators.
I think that's fantastic. So you started with summer camp, which I love summer camps.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Outward Bound. So you still bounce back to Outward Bound every once in a while, to understand.
Yeah, I was actually there last month helping some folks lead canoeing and backpacking and mountaineering expeditions in northern Washington in the North Cascades. So I was not in the field necessarily, but helping basically educate the instructors who were going out into the field and preparing them to be excellent educators in that type of very experiential, very personal, very, expansive and exciting environment.
That's so exciting. That's so cool that you've been doing that for years, and now you're educating the educators. So talk to me about WSL Leadership. What's it stand for? Actually, what's the W and the S and the L?
Yeah, that stands for Work, Sport, Life, Leadership.
Oh, okay.
So I help people in all those different areas. I love working with people in the world of work, as leaders often are in work environments. I also love working with athletes. I have a close connection with my local roller derby league and also the roller derby leagues around the world. I work a lot. Somehow I've gotten connected to this community. I don't skate, but I'm a huge fan and love working with those athletes and other athletes. I've worked with other sports teams. And then life, like we are human, we can communicate better. A lot of the same lessons apply, whether you're leading a corporate environment or working as an athlete on a sport team, or just trying to communicate well with your life, in your life, with your neighbors, with your friends, with your family, or resolve conflict. Like these same topics come up in all these different areas. And being a good educator, you can educate folks in any of those environments too. So it all sort of intermingles.
And I think we all need to, we all are experts in our own right, and knowing how to transfer our knowledge and get people to take action, I think is what it's really about whenever we're creating the online courses. I love the fact that you're in the roller skating league. I had a client who did that, and it's such a blast. It's
so fun. It's like the best sport. If you can ever catch a bout anywhere, like they're actually all over the US. Almost every town has a league or a league nearby. I would just say, go watch a roller derby bout. You will be excited. It'll be interesting. It's super athletic. It's super fun. It's really, such a great sport. I love it.
And I love the outfits.
Oh yeah. And there's outfits, and there's like just enough silliness and some like very punny names. Like it's really great all around.
Yeah, it's really, really fun. So it sounds like your career has just gone, really good, really well in alignment with where you are now. But talk to me about a time where you just felt a little bit lost, or you weren't quite sure what you were supposed to be doing next. What's the next step for Iggy?
Yeah, I've been working sort of full-time year-round for Outward Bound for many years. So that meant summer seasons leading canoeing and backpacking expeditions in northern Minnesota, and then the winters leading dog sled and ski expeditions in the same course area, the same space. So I've been doing that for maybe 7 or so years. And so basically my off season was April and November. And so I had these sort of 2 months off a year, and the rest of the time I was working. And I sort of got to this point where I'm like, and I'd worked up into sort of management type of positions or middle management, and I was supervising interns, and I was training other staff, and I was doing these different things. And eventually at a certain point, I'm like, this is feeling a little stale. It's feeling a little rote, like I've done this and new stuff is happening. It's a really dynamic environment. So it's not like things got boring. But I think I felt like I lost sort of the energy for that. So I'm like, well, what am I going to do? Like, I don't quite have the energy for this work. And then there's this part of my brain that's like, well, what has this trained me for? What has this entire, I've been doing that work for maybe, probably 12 or 15 years by then. And specifically at least 7 years, summers and winters at Outward Bound, like back to back to back. And, I was sort of like, well, what can I do with all this knowledge? Like, I know how to like schedule people a little bit. I know how to train people to back up trailers. I know how to tie canoes on a trailer. I have all these like different skills. Like, I guess I've been training staff. I've been doing all this stuff. And I sort of went through this process of thinking about where my 10,000 hours have been spent, right? So Malcolm Gladwell does a fine, okay job summarizing Anders Ericsson, right? Who was the guy who did the original research about peak performance and how we can become experts in our field by like 10,000 hours of deliberate practice, not just 10,000 hours of like willy-nilly doing something. Like I could do a lot of things. We probably have all driven for 10,000 hours, yet we are nowhere near being professional drivers, right? Like we just willy-nilly do these things. So I was thinking about where I had focused my energy, where I had training and gotten feedback, been coached, and it really was around leadership development. So I'm like, and I like working with leaders. I like helping leaders lead. And I think in that space, leaders were leading groups, but also educating groups at the same time. The instructors were leaders. So there's this great intermingling of being educators and being leaders at the same time. And so I kind of just took a step back and was like, well, I don't want to be in the field or be in this remote space. What do I want to do? Where do I want to be doing it? And mainly, who do I want to be working with? And that's, I think, how I focused in on working with leaders. And from there, focusing with then adding back in leaders who are also educators on there. So I had this moment of transition from northern Minnesota, remote edge of basically, I think we were about 10 miles from the Canadian border, like remote northern Minnesota, mostly water between us and Canada. Like we could paddle there, to living in Portland, Oregon, where I am now, much more obviously urban environment, and working with people who are leaders and are leading in dynamic and interesting environments, and they encounter the same problems. How do we make decisions? How do we get things done? How do we get from here to there? Maybe not physically necessarily with our dogs over these lakes, but how do we get from here to there to produce our thing, to make our mark on the world, to do our thing? So there was definitely a lot of wrestling through that time of what do I want to be doing? Who do I want to be doing it with? And then I ended up here. So here we are.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people right now are going through that same thing. And I think it's so brilliant to think about, okay, what are my skills? And then most importantly, who do I want to work with to use those skills with? I think that's super important. I know as a professional organizer, we always started as generalists, and then we fine tune down who we want to work with, what clients bring us joy when we work with them. And if you can really figure out first off your skill set, and then who you like to hang out with and who you like to help, then you have joy in your career. And I think that this is great advice for anybody who's looking to switch, to jump out of maybe corporate, or to jump out of an outward bound situation like you, which is a very rare scenario.
Yeah.
Although I do have a very close girlfriend that has taught repelling and that kind of thing.
Oh
And,
yeah, absolutely. It's super fun.
Yeah.
But I think you're right though, with who do you want to work with? Like who are you excited to work with? Even if it's hard for you, like being excited to work with them, like helps you and them both see progress, I think is a great place to start. Those people, that characteristic, that workplace, whatever it is. Great first step.
And they are going to be a challenge. And that's the whole beauty of it, because the people that you really want to work with are the people who are going to help you grow as well. Mm-hmm. So think about that when you're first launching gang out there.
Oh yeah. And always ask for feedback. Anyone you work with, ask them for feedback every single time. What can I do better? What did you like about this? Anyway, whatever formulation of asking for feedback works for you, you're going to grow so much faster, so much better, and serve people so much better down the road by, like, really at the end of every whatever session you have, leaving a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes to be like, what feedback do you have? And just let them talk. It's going to like sculpt your arc of your trajectory in amazing ways.
I love feedback. I tell people that all the time. It's like good, bad, ugly. I don't care. Just let me know how you really feel about it.
Absolutely.
And you have to be open and receptive to that. So talk to me about, okay, so you made the jump. Talk to me about your first client that you landed that was not in the old world. Like what was your first leadership client and what happened with that?
Well, actually it was the roller derby league, to be honest, which is really funny because they'd had a volunteer fair. And I was like, oh, I should go to this volunteer fair. I've been watching. I'm a fan. I have all these skills working with actually youth and adults in leadership and team environments. I could probably help them out. It's a nonprofit volunteer organization. So I'm like, oh, I could help. And I called them up or emailed or whatever. And the volunteer coordinator got back to me and was like, oh, you missed the volunteer fair. Like I missed the date or whatever. But what skills do you have? What can you do? I'm like, well, I've like in the world of Outward Bound, I've been helping teens and youth develop their leadership, like primarily, and young adults. That's kind of what I'd been doing at that exact moment. And then adding like training adults to be leaders too. And they're like, hey, next weekend we have a retreat for our junior team. They're sort of infighting and getting cranky with each other and, just struggling a little bit. Can you help out at this retreat next weekend? So I'm like, sure. So basically within 7 days, I was volunteering at this retreat. And then from there, basically became a league sponsor, became a league, got hired by the league to do other work. So I think they were my first client in a really interesting, multifaceted way. So I started with the juniors, then I worked with the adults, and the adult team happens to be the reigning world champions right now. So I've been working with them for several years, the travel team, and then got into working with like the league management. It's a really big league. So not every league has so many different teams and different programs. So then I did some leadership coaching for the basically not the board exactly, but the leadership team of the league. They sort of have a couple different managers running different programs. And now I'm doing, they recently hired me to do a leadership development course for their junior team skaters and then their junior team coaches and their junior team parents, because those are some complex relationships and how they act and interact is, it could be smooth, could be not so smooth. So I'm going to help them make those communication flow a little more easily for all of them.
Wow, that's pretty intensive. I can't even imagine doing a course that would handle all the aspects of all those different types of people. So
it's going to be a big project. Yeah, it's a big project.
A big project. That's fantastic. So, whenever we think about creating our own online course for this one set of people with this one specific message, it's like rudimentary to you as far as basics. Get back to the basics.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it'll be super helpful for other leagues. I think the hope is then to make this for my local league and then to be able to also offer it to other folks in other places too.
Yeah, what a great backstory. So as you're creating these courses, how do you keep all that information organized? What's your method? I know you use Google Calendars. We can talk about that. I love Google Calendar. So let's first start with that and then talk to me about the way that you might organize the information that you're going to put into a course.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, I definitely had to start with Google Calendar because I'm a very much a scheduler and a time blocker offer. And so if I want to do, I'm a fan of Deep Work. Cal Newport's sort of book. He wrote this book called Deep Work, which is about giving yourself time to, without interruption, to really focus on something. And I find that's where I do a lot of my really good work, is to be able to block out interruptions, block out phone calls, turn off, alerts and alarms, and focus. And so I can get that on my calendar by basically scheduling work days, scheduling work blocks sometimes. But I have all the integrations into my calendar. It's like, oh, you're going to schedule something with me? Boop. Like the Zoom link just shows up in my calendar. Like, oh, you're going to, we need to have a meeting about this or that. Like, here, let me send you my scheduler. It's going to get on my calendar. Like, if it's not scheduled on my calendar, it's pretty rare it won't happen. I don't have my phone ringer turned on. So if I need to schedule a phone call, I need to tell my calendar to tell me to turn on my ringer. It really helps me stay focused on the things I need to be doing, and also give me the time to do the things, put my days off on there. Like, actually, I'm not taking meetings this day. I'm actually going to have a weekend. What is that? These different pieces that I did not always do well, to be honest. Like, I had to get myself into a process of using my Google Calendar better to not overschedule myself. And I think that's the danger.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact that you can have Google say, turn on your phone. I actually need to do that myself because I have my phone off all the time at all times. And so whenever you create a little chunk of time for a project, I'm just very curious, how long do you designate for a deep dive project? What do you block? How many hours?
Yeah, it depends. By now I have sort of a rough estimate of how much time I need to do something or to develop something. Another app I use is Reclaim.ai, and that is this beautiful integration with Google Calendar that you can tell it, hey, I have this project. It's going to take me 15 hours to do. Here's my deadline. Here's when I want to start, and make me times that are at least an hour long, but not more than 2 hours long between now and then. And then it'll fit those into your calendar and block off those days and times in your calendar for you. So it's super handy. I'm a big fan of that one, just to sort of help me, because I know this. I have a training upcoming next week where I'm actually working with the Derby League and another organization next week. So I have these two projects competing in my mind, sort of a little bit this week, and so I know I need to spend maybe 6 or 8 hours on one and maybe about 12 hours on the other, that's almost a full week. That's 20 hours of work. I need to fit it in, and so I end up trying to. There's a way. It's hard to explain exactly because there's one way to do it is be like, okay, here's my hour to work on the Derby thing. I'm not going to do anything else. And then if I get there, I'm like, oh, but my brain's really on this other project. Like, maybe I need to work on that other project and sort of trade the hours back and forth. It gets messy. It's a whole train wreck. But I know my calendar is not going to have, 4 other phone calls pop up and 2 other podcasts and 2, I know those other things aren't going to happen because I have that time already blocked out for these 2 projects during the week.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. That's incredible. I haven't heard of Reclaim.ai, so I'm going to definitely check that out.
Yeah,
I made a little note about it.
I'm a fan. Yeah.
And I'm a big proponent that if you know what you're supposed to do, you know what you didn't do. So like you say, you get into that block of time and you're like, I'm supposed to be working with the Derby, but wait, I'm not really there. So you can just swap it. But if if it wasn't in the schedule to begin with, you couldn't swap it with anything. So that's the beauty of the Google Calendar. Now, when it comes to organizing the course curriculum, what do you use for that? Because I know everybody has different methods, and I want everybody out there to hear what everybody uses, because then you can choose your own. Because gang, I feel like there's no one way to do anything. So take whatever you hear within these podcasts and choose the one that works for you. So let's hear about yours, Iggy.
Yeah, I have a little curriculum planning guide that I start with the goal of the thing. Like, my goal for this weekend is like a 20-minute talk about how coaches, skaters, and parents interact. Like, that's like the goal for my next little presentation. That's what it needs to be. And then I walk through sort of the beginning part of it, like how am I going to introduce it, set it up. The middle part, like what am I going to have people do to practice or engage with this? And then the final part, like what am I going to give them that they're going to take away? And then there's this little piece at the very end that is called transference. So we have the beginning with some activity, and then transference is what's the thing that they're going to apply next time. Like, so they've had this experience. What are they applying? Not just a goal, like, yeah, they had a talk, they learned about some stuff, but what are they going to do? And that needs to be super succinct in like a 20-minute talk, like maybe 2 or 3 things, or maybe one thing for each group. I guess I have to think about it that way. What is the one thing they need to take away and use and do after this talk? Like, oh, I need to know as a coach that I need to lead the parents and lead the skaters both. And like, if that's all I have the coaches remember, and like, here's 2 ways I can do that, great. That they're set up to like do that next time. Like, oh wait, I need to lead some parents right now. Wait, I need to lead some skaters right now. So that transference piece is crucial for how the impact that I want to deliver gets like lands and gets enacted and happens. So not just the goal, not just the steps to get there, but what is that thing that they're actively going to do next time they're in the situation that I'm setting them up for.
Yeah, what is the action step they are to take? And I think oftentimes I even forget that. Like that's one of my big mantras, but I forget it. At the end, it's just like thud, and then, oh, I didn't really tell them what I wanted them to do next, or I wasn't very clear about that. So being succinct, and I think if you can make it, some kind of a cool little phrase helps too, but I'm not that good at that kind of thing, but you probably have that down.
It's tough. It's tough. And it changes all the time for different groups or different organization parts. But I think you're right. Like we forget transference. We're like, yeah, I gave you all that information. See ya. Good luck. And we're like, high five. Like,
and they're like, my head is swimming. I have too much information. I don't even know what I was supposed to do next. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so just making it super clear, when this happens, here's what I want you to do, or here's like the next 3, your 2 steps from there, or here's what the framework that I want you to like employ when this situation comes up again. Because that situation will happen. Like the coaches are going to coach, the skaters are going to skate, the parents are going to parent. Like those things are going to happen. And so I can just set them up with like one next step in like such a short talk. And then luckily for this, group, I have like much more training I get to do down the road. But this has to be the intro and like get them sort of rolling along a little bit with that. But yeah, I still want them to do something. I don't want them to just be like, wow, good job. Thanks for talking and making it vaguely entertaining. Like, yep, it's going to be vaguely entertaining and you have to do your part too.
Absolutely. Do you find that one thing is the goal for yourself, for your talks, having them take away one thing that they can take action on?
It depends. It really depends a little bit. I guess if I was talking later, I have a training that's just with the skaters to be leaders in their league, leaders in their team. So they're going to have a lot more things to do because it's going to be really focused. But having 3 different groups I'm talking to in one talk that are very distinct audiences, I think if they each have one to 2 things, it depends a little bit. That's gonna be a lot of things, right? Because everyone else is gonna be sitting there being like, okay, this isn't about me, like taking a nap. And so I want to keep them engaged throughout and understand how they interact with these different pieces. So most likely for this, it's like 3 different things, but it's just one thing per group a little bit.
And
so
if you're focusing in on one group, how many action steps would you recommend that we tell our people to do at the end of each talk?
Up to 3. I think more than 3 there's just a lot of situations to be prepared for. Yeah. And if you have like obviously a longer training, like if you're doing a whole course, like great, each lesson can have 2 or 3 takeaways, perfect. Then at the end of a course of 20 lessons, suddenly they've done 80 different things. It's amazing. You can compound those and add those up and make them progressive and make them like scaffold onto each other. It's really powerful. And so like you give them the easy thing first and then like the slightly harder thing that builds on the easy thing and the slightly harder thing. So they are still using those earlier steps and those earlier skills, but they're applying them in more nuanced and more interesting ways the whole time. So then they really get good at them over time. And that's the beauty of, I think, a lot of online courses people create, that they can be really long, but also they need to be really engaging and really thoughtful, or else you lose people early on and people are sort of out to lunch, and we see this. We see people drop off. They pay for it. They don't show up. We host a session. You have 100 signups and 25 people, click into the call or whatever. And people watch videos. People, take things in different ways. But I think that level of engagement, we don't want to lose people by just giving them too much and like overwhelming them. And so making it really simple, step by step, is really helpful. And that ties into not giving them 45 things to do, giving them maybe 3 things to do. For an hour or 45-minute talk is usually plenty of things.
Yeah, I just had an aha moment when you were saying that, I always have like 3 action steps at the end of each chapter, at the end of each module. Well, what I thought is, what if I had that compiled into one sheet and they could see all the check marks and all the stuff that they've done? They can actually physically, visibly see the progress that they've made throughout the course. I think that'd be like icing on the cake, right?
Oh, absolutely. People are so motivated by seeing mastery develop. And that was Daniel Pink's book, Drive. He talks about how when we see that we're mastering things, we're making progress, we feel a ton of confidence. Like, oh yeah, when we tried to think back to like, remember when you didn't know that thing and it was super hard and terrible, and now it's not so hard and terrible, and in the future it could be really easy. We're like, oh my gosh, I am on my way, I can do it. And so I think that, yeah, like exactly you're saying, like a checklist of like, here's what you've done already, here's where you are now, and hey, there's a little bit more to do, but also remember how this was kind of terrible and now you're getting better at it. That's showing people that they're growing and learning is really powerful for sure.
And maybe to unveil each step as you get to each step. Because I'm again thinking of the Google Doc with the check marks, right? I'll unveil, the next curriculum, you'll see the next steps, but they aren't unveiled till you get there. So they're not to get overwhelmed. But you just gave me great insight.
Well, yeah, and I think it helps at the beginning of the chapter. And this is the thing that you actually probably just saw my download that I have for folks to like set people up to learn. Because I think sometimes we jump in, we're like, hey, we're going to do this really cool thing. Let's go. And people are like, wait, what are we doing? What's happening? How are we getting there? And our learners sort of get like they're just trying to figure out what we're doing a little bit in a way that wastes energy when they could be focused on doing what we're doing together. And I think my analogy is like we jump into connecting the dots when the learner's like, wait, we're not doing a crossword right now? I didn't get it. Hold on. Like they just aren't quite on the same page. So setting people up for knowing like, hey, in this session, we're going to cover these 3 things. And at the end, I want you to be able to do this thing. Then you can go back to the beginning and be like, oh, okay, great. Now I know what's happening. We're gonna do these things, and at the end, I'm gonna be able to do this thing. Great, got it. Check. Like my brain can flow along with your flow, and there's different ways to be really nuanced about how that flow works or how it goes, if it's chronological or schematic or just sort of different things. But I think that helps learners. I think so many educators skip that step, and the learners are just a little bit swimming around like, what's happening next? Which is fine to have some anticipation, but if it's like, wait, what's happening? At all? Like that's not so great for our learners.
Yeah, connected versus hangman or whatever.
Yeah, what's even happening? They don't know, and it's obvious for us because we're the educators. We have all this expertise, we have all this knowledge, and we have it in our brain. We're like, oh yeah, obviously we're going to go chronologically through these things. Meanwhile, your learner's like, wait, there's an order to this stuff. Like our learners don't quite always know that what we know. Like it's hard. That's the really difficult part of being an educator is assuming and putting ourselves in the place of that person who just doesn't know when we've absorbed the knowledge and it's like intrinsic to us. It's so easy. Like when you ask me how I organize things, I'm like, I don't know. I just organize them, because it's intrinsic. I just do it. And like, that's sort of, it's become a habit for me. And so to break myself out of my habits and explain it takes more effort because it's just become a rote habit. And we teach like that too. We teach like, oh yeah, this is a habit for me. It's known I'm an expert, but we're teaching learners who are not experts and who are very much beginners. And I think we don't always appreciate how hard it is for them to learn and to put themselves in that learning role. And nor do we always set them up well to be really effective learners. And so that's the beautiful download I have for you all.
Yes. Because 18 years or 20 years or whatever experience trying to drip feed it or trying to see how did I actually get here, I think is the most the hardest thing to do when you're creating something for people to integrate into their life. Yeah. So let's talk about that download. What do you have? So you should download this because I just did it and it's really, really good.
Yes, it's at wslleadership.com/educator, and it is a guide to help people build what's called a roadmap statement. It's called the Roadmap Statement Guide. And the roadmap statement is one sentence, basically, or sort of two little pieces that you add at the beginning of your lesson, your session, your course to orient your learners. So your learners know like, oh, I get what our goal is. It has 2 parts. It has a goal and sort of the process a little bit. So you want to tell your learners, here's our goal for today. I'm going to teach you how to, post on Instagram today. And here's our process. I'm going to go through it step by step, 1 click at a time. Like people are like, oh, great. I know where we're going. I know how we're going to get there. Great. I can follow along. Or, hey, I'm going to teach you how to be a confident speaker. We're going to go through starting with your fears and then talking about how to use those fears to like launch you into more and better speaking roles. Like whatever it is for your expertise, the goal plus the process. And we talk about the goal pretty much. Like, I mean, people sign up for the goal. They're signing up for like, oh, I want to be a better speaker. I want to post on Instagram all the time. I want to blah, blah, blah. But we sort of skip over the process. And that process is how our learners know what to expect and how they build a framework in their mind. And then they can attach all the pieces of knowledge that you're giving them to this framework. And for the learners, from the learner's point of view, this makes it so much easier versus I have this apple over here. I have a couple oranges, 16 bananas and a watermelon. Am I making a fruit salad? What am I doing here? What's going on? And so it makes it really easy. Like, hey, we're making fruit salad. I'm going to give you 5 different fruits. You're like, got it. Hand me the fruits. I'm ready for them. And so our learners are ready and oriented to do the thing that we want them to do and to get to that transference at the end. It just smooths the way a lot easier. So the guide, roadmap statement guide that you can download is a really fast, really short process for how to create that statement in a way that your learners are oriented so they can learn and grow and transform a lot more easily. So you're not sort of fighting their mental energy with not curiosity, but like confusion in their minds.
Yeah, and I love the roadmap because again, it is succinct and it's easy. I know exactly what you're trying to have me do, Iggy. I know how I'm going to do it now, and I feel that I can do it.
Yeah,
So,
one sentence, you can do it. It's fast, it's easy.
but we skip that step of like, okay, and I'm going to show you how to do it. 1, 2, 3. This is the 1, 2, 3 step, or or ABC, or however it is that we're going to give them the information. So yeah, everybody download this. It's really quick. It's really easy, and I think it really got my brain stirring on possibly parts that I've missed within courses that I've created. It's like, oh yeah, I should have probably done that.
Well, and you can go back and add it in, or add it on the front page, or the title slide, whatever it is, be like, hey, let me just edit this little thing in. Here's where we're going today. Okay, great. Now we're going to get going. And it's simple. It's easy to add in later if you forgot. And it really helps your learners so much. Like, you would not believe how much your learners, like, their anxiety level just decreases because they're like, okay, I get it. I get where we're going.
Yeah. And then they actually take action, which, as influencers, educators, we want people to be able to take in our information and actually use it, because that's why we're entrepreneurs. We're here to help people shift into something new and grow and blossom. I mean, that's why we're all entrepreneurs, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. We have something to offer, and I just want people to offer it more easily in a way that people can learn and use better.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so one piece of advice that you've received, because you've given me a lot of really good advice today. What's one piece of advice that you've received in your life that still sticks in your mind? The thing that sticks.
I mean, it goes back to the calendar, which is a little weird because I'm attached to my Google Calendar, but I still follow it. My dad said to get a calendar with really small boxes for every day. This is back in the paper calendar world, the little calendar. So you couldn't write very much in every day. And that's what time management is. And I was like, that's true. And so on my Google Calendar now, on my view, if there's more things where it has to say and more, I'm like, that's too much stuff on my day. If it says, like, I need to be able to see everything in the box, and I don't have like week, day view. I think I have 3-week view. So like each box can hold like 6 or 8, 6 things maybe. If I have more than that, I'm like, I'm overscheduled. Like, I already know it. So I need to be able to visually see that's my limiting factor, to not overschedule myself and to time manage myself, is to make sure I can not put too much in each day on my calendar based on my dad's advice.
That's really, really good advice. I remember my father always had the paper calendar, that he stuck in his
absolutely
shirt, and he wrote very small. And that is such good advice. If you can't fit it in the square, then you probably are overreaching, and it will set yourself up for being very disappointed, or I didn't get anything done,
or scattered.
Yeah, or like the Ivy law of success, using the Ivy system where you only have 3 to 5 things each day, and that's it. You have you do the first 3, and if the other 2 didn't happen, they become the first 3 for the next day. So it keeps it very, very simple. And again, it allows us to have our roadmap of what we've actually done. As when you do 15 different little bitsy things, it feels like you haven't done anything.
Oh yeah, our brain can't process, like, we switch so much, we spend so much energy switching between things. Like, we're not multitaskers. Like, that's sort of this myth, right, of multitasking. We're just switching between things in a way that we don't pay close attention, which doesn't help us do great work if we're not paying close attention, because we're spend so much time switching between things. So yeah, fewer things. I'm all about fewer things per day. And that includes phone calls, scheduled meetings, whatever, all the things that you have in your life and times. Like, unless it's a habit, like brushing your teeth, like, great, I don't need to put that on my calendar, but if it's going for a run, like, yeah, I'm going to block off time. I'm going to put, things on my calendar that are meetings, schedule, my deep work, my planning time, all these different things. And yeah, for me, not too many per day, for sure.
Yeah, and chunking them together into different types of buckets. I call them umbrella-ing each intention for each day, having it say, okay, this is my phone call day. This is when I'm going to be chatty. But, Wednesday is my project day. I'm not going to chat.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is my weekend where I'm not going to do any of those things, right? Like, it's okay to schedule yourself to not do the work things. Because I think this is the other challenge of being an entrepreneur. Like, we always have ideas. We always have creating things. And like, I do take notes. Like, if on the weekend I get a great idea, I'm going to write it down. But I'm not going to go sit and pursue, outlining a whole article that day. I'll get enough notes to get back to that later. Like, you need your diffuse mode brain to like have some time to just do other things or not be focus.
Yeah, I totally agree. And between, switching tasks, I think they figured out at 17 and a half minutes to swap a task.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 17 and a half minutes it takes to get back to where you were when you jumped off the boat and went on to something else. Even just answering a phone call, you answer a phone call, you have a chit chat, 17 and a half minutes before you can get back into the project of which you were thinking about to begin with, because you're still thinking about the conversation.
I felt that 100%. I believe it. Like, I have definitely felt like, okay, wait, where was I? What was I doing? I had that great idea. I'm sure, obviously I had so many great ideas. Where did they go? Yeah. Every time.
Where did they go? Where did those ideas go? I say that to myself all the time. It was there. Yeah. Well, this has been fantastic. Is there anything that we should have talked about that we haven't covered yet? I just want to say that at the end in case I forgot something that was super important that you wanted to tell the gang.
I don't think I have anything super important, but I would be curious to hear what you're taking away from today. What's the top thing that you're taking away from today?
I love the fact that telling people so I always tell them what I'm going to tell them, but actually putting it into how am I going to show you this? What are what's the avenue that I'm going to use for this? Is it going to be, you're going to watch these videos, you're going to do this check sheet? What is it? How are you going to take the information into your body or into your brain that I give to you? So I think that's very important in anything that I'm teaching. So that's my big takeaway is the steps or the procedure or
the process. Yeah.
The process. Because I'm good at saying what I'm going to say. I got that when that was in brain, tell them what you're going to tell them and then tell it to them again. So now it's tell them what you're going to tell them and then tell them how you're going to have them use it and how it's going to flow. So that they have that anticipation. And I think that will increase the learning. So that's my big takeaway. I love it. And I love the roadmap. So everybody that's listening, go ahead and click the download. And on top of that, you'll get some more good tips from Iggy as she progresses in her world and comes up with more things that she's learned and taught about leadership. So I really appreciate your time, Iggy, and I wish you much success. And I'm going to, now I want to I got to go find my client and watch one of her derbies because it's a blast. Oh
yeah, it's so great. Go find it. It's out there if you can't find it locally, it's definitely on Twitch or on YouTube. It's out there.
Yeah, it's a blast. So check out that too. But thanks so much for your time. And everybody go ahead if you're thinking about creating a course, even if you're just doing a talk, even if you're just teaching a client, use these processes. I think it's going to be brilliant. I can think actually another application is at the beginning of a client session. What are we going to talk about today? And this is the way that I'm going to show you how to implement it. These will be the steps that you learn today. I think that's going to be huge.
Yeah, or with client work. We're going to start with you as a person, then talk about your closest relationships and further relationships and further relationships. There are just lots of ways to structure that so people's brains follow along. Great. I'm so excited for you to use that. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you so much, Iggy. I really appreciate your time, and gang, we'll see you next week, and make sure to download the roadmap. Thanks, Iggy.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to this podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you want to hear more, feel free to subscribe on the platform of your choice. Also, if you feel so inclined, I would truly appreciate a good rating from you to me. Have a stellar day.